The Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to the Lord. Jesus took Peter, John, and James and went up the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, two men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my chosen son. Listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell silent and did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen. The Gospel of the Lord.
I think we're used to this, perhaps by now, the second Sunday of Lent being the Transfiguration of Jesus. And that's true in year A, B, and C. And today we have it in C. In fact, this is one of the events that is recounted in each of the Gospels. So we have St. Luke's account of what happened on the mountain that day as Jesus went to pray, and he took with him Peter, James, and John. What I'd say the first point of reflection, I think it's a significant point. Our first point of reflection is to allow the event to be what it is and to experience it, for us to experience it. Because again, each of the gospel authors thinks that the event is significant enough to recount, even in its minor detail, even in the details that don't conform to the propping up of a theological point. Do you know, sometimes we tell stories because we have a point to make, right? And that's true of this gospel account as well. But it's not as though it's not as though everything is streamlined, like the story is streamlined to make clear this particular theological point. They are recounting what happened. That's, I think, worth reflecting on. This event happened, and we can see what kind of reactions or responses the disciples had. Jesus' three closest friends, what the reaction they had to what was going on in front of them, to what was being, revealed to them, or what they were experiencing. Right? There's a lot of kind of fumbling around, and we don't really get what this is all about. And yet they realize something of crucial significance is happening there. We, I think, and the church allows this for us always, again, the second Sunday of Lent, we, I think, should come before that mystery, the mystery of Jesus' transfiguration, and try to experience it and receive what is on offer for us there, just in terms of the raw experience. It's something for us to meditate on, to bring to God, to say, okay, we now, through the witness of these chosen apostles, we now are witnesses to this event. We now are witnesses also to the Transfiguration, this second Sunday of Lent. And allow God to speak to us there. And if our response to it is the kind of bumbling response of St. Peter, whose response is described in St. Luke's commentary, saying, but he did not know what he was saying. Right? He blurts out, "It's good for us to be here. We should build a tent." Blah, blah, blah. And he did not know what he was saying. If that's our response, still fine, but we are witnesses to transfiguration. That's the first point. The second point of 3, by the way, okay, I am making progress. The second point of 3 is that the theological reality. So, and how do we understand what the evangelists are trying to communicate to us in relation to the transfiguration? What does the transfiguration mean relative to the whole story of Jesus that's playing out before us? The 2 points I think that become our launching pad for this theological point is, the 2 points are, rather, we see the 2 men conversing with Jesus, right, appearing in glory, speaking of his exodus. So Jesus' exodus, we have to keep this in mind. And then the other part is at the end, where the voice from the cloud says, "This is my chosen son." Okay? Now, "this is my chosen son" is language that say a faithful Jew would know. This is speaking about Israel. Israel is God's firstborn. Israel is God's chosen, elect, chosen son. And now that this voice from the cloud speaks this word of Jesus, we know Jesus is Israel in the flesh. And Jesus, this is also messianic language here, Jesus is at the head of his people. He's at the head of the new Israel, and he is leading them then to a new exodus. The exodus that we saw, say, Moses at the head of in the book of Exodus is, say, recounted for us, the liberation of God's chosen people from their slavery in Egypt, bringing them to the promised land. The exodus that Jesus is going to accomplish is liberation from sin and death for all of God's people, bringing them to the promised land of God's new creation, when everything will be set right, when the kingdom of God will be firmly and finally established. But he is at the head of his people, making the way to the promised land that he, because he is the Messiah, is also bringing into existence. So this, say, right ordering of affairs, certainly the bringing of heaven to earth, is happening in and through Christ Jesus. Again, push back into the reality. This is the Exodus, but who is speaking to him? Moses and Elijah. It's the representatives, the symbolic representation of the law and the prophets. Moses and Elijah are speaking to Jesus. This is the testimony of the law and the prophets. And we see Jesus comment on the law and the prophets in the Gospel of Matthew, where he's asked the question about which is the greatest commandment. He says, this is the first, to love the Lord your God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. The second is like it, to love your neighbor and yourself. The law and the prophets hang on these. The law and the prophets, right, are footnotes relative to loving the Lord your God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, your neighbor as yourself. This gives us some sense then of the application, right? So that's the theological point. Of course, there's much more there. There's a lot that I'm not able to give in this short period of time, even if this short period of time ends up being 20 or 30 minutes. We could dedicate our whole lives to just that. Would be great. It would be great as theological exploration and our understanding and the rest. This is where we get into the point of application and again, the narrative, getting back to the story and how we're supposed to take this and go forward is, okay, Jesus is at the head of his people, the witness of the law and the prophets push us into the way that Jesus is going to go. He is going to go the way of love, loving God with his whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. His neighbor is himself. He's going the way that the best glorifies God, and in service of him, becomes outpouring of love for the world. And he's going to do that all the way to death. He's going to see it through all the way to the end. We see actually there's the story that in each of the Gospels follows the Transfiguration is an account. Jesus goes down and his apostles are struggling. They can't do it. They're struggling to cast out a demon from a child. They can't do it. Jesus, having been on the mountaintop, this mountaintop experience, right? This glory-filled and radiating experience, is sent to the depths, the world's deepest darkness. So the mountaintop to the valley below, from glory to glory down below. But he's ready to take that low road all the way to the end. So this then is us. That's us as well, okay? Because Jesus is at the head of his people. We are his people. We have been called. You have been called to follow Jesus on the way of love, the way of great love that is also costly. And we're willing to walk with Jesus as he bears the cost, the burden. And we bear it too and confront it. We go to the place of the world's brokenness and darkness to bring the light and the strength of God's love, the healing of God's love. That's what we're about. Because that's the way, again, that Jesus goes. Now, the event here and kind of my preaching on it is skewed a little bit towards theology, okay? But we don't have to have a theological mind in order to get what the apostles, say, received and held on to as they went forward from that place. Because here it is, right? The kind of the experience of glory, Jesus, wow, he's marked out again as God's Son. He's at the head of his people. He's the Messiah. He's at the head of his people. And now the voice again speaks. This is my chosen Son, all of that. Okay, listen to him. Listen to him. Now, of course, they were listening to him. They wouldn't be up the mountain if they weren't listening to him. But from here to the end, they have to pay very close attention. Why is this? I think it's because the way of love, sometimes, especially when we're not paying attention, close attention, it goes unseen. But they have to listen to him. They have to listen to Jesus because that's the way he's going to go. They have to pay very close attention to what Jesus is doing because he is leading them in the way of love, and they have to learn that now. And everything from here to the cross matters. So they have to pay very close attention. This then for us is say, the remainder of the Lenten season, but also the remainder of our life as Christians. We have to pay very close attention to Jesus. So everything we do, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, and all the rest, any way that we're observing this Lenten season has to be oriented to that reality, that we're better able to listen to Jesus by what all is going on, by what all we're doing, and we have to be ready and eager to heed his call. So this is it for us, right? If we forget the rest, it's fine. But this then is the point. I'll just say it again. This is my chosen Son. Listen to him.